G'day, I'm Paul. Toyota has just unveiled the all-new Land Cruiser Prado, or Land Cruiser as it'll be known in the US. Today I'm going to walk you through the exterior, the interior and the engines that are available, along with some of the cool four-wheel driving tech they're cramming into this as well. Now, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon. Let's get started. Okay, so let's kick off with the exterior. Now, the cool thing is there are two different models they've launched with. It's called the Land Cruiser because it will be sold in the US as a Land Cruiser. Now, confusingly, this is the 250 series. It is not the same as the 300 series Land Cruiser that's sold here in Australia and in other places around the world. That version will not be sold in the States. So this is a smaller version. It sits on the same wheelbase, the same platform, but it is slightly shorter in terms of the front and rear overhangs, and it has slightly different technology and drivetrains as well. But let's start on the outside. They've launched two different variants, and this is the first one here. It kind of looks quite similar to the Lexus GX they announced recently, and I think this looks sensational. I've just got to say that they have done such a good job here with the styling. So this particular version gets those square-looking headlights down the front there. You'll also notice big Toyota lettering on the grille there as well, and then fog lights hidden down the bottom there too. I like these stylized elements as well that they've gone for on those front edges and also the lower section down the front here. I think they've really put a lot of effort into making sure that this looks nice and rugged without being over the top. This particular spec looks like it's sitting on a decent set of all-terrain tyres. Big wheel arch guards there as well, so that everyone knows that you're driving an off-road vehicle. And then I mentioned in our Lexus GX video as well that these look very familiar, and they look kind of similar to what we've seen on the Tank 300, the GWM, and also on the Jeep Gladiator as well, that little design there with an indicator built into the side there as well. I think the design here really just takes this completely away from what the current generation Prado looks like. It's very boxy, very squared off, and I think it looks absolutely sensational there from the front end. There is a different design though available for the front, and I call this the Defender design because they've kind of copied the Land Rover Defender there with the lights. So there's circular LED lights up the front there. There's kind of a sandy taupe color similar to what we've seen on the 70 series, and they've actually just updated that as well. And if you want to see our video on that, click up here to watch that. But circular headlights up the front there, but same setup there in terms of Toyota lettering. Wheel arch guards, all-terrain tyres, fog lights, and then an air dam here for cooling as well for the engines, which I'll run you through shortly, and same setup there for the wing mirrors. I quite like as well what they've done with the roof there, how it's a different colour. You'll notice their body colour is sandy taupe, and then the roof is like a lighter colour as well. I like this rising belt line as we get to the back too. It really does look quite nice. Side steps look a little different here too. They seem to have like a metallic finish on them, which I think is a pretty cool setup and kind of differentiates this from other vehicles on the road. I think from a design standpoint, this looks really nice. So let's have a look at the back of these, where there's also been a pretty big improvement, I reckon, on the design. So you can see there, LED tail lights, you've got Land Cruiser there, and then Toyota over here. The interesting thing as well, they've put brake light up the top there, shark fin aerial there too. The interesting thing is we don't have that swing open tailgate, so that seems to be gone. It's now just a regular tailgate. We might have a version similar to what they've done in Australia, where they've put the spare tyre under the vehicle to delete the long range tank. Alternatively, we might actually see a version of this launch with the tyre on the back and a swing open tailgate. We don't know yet. The details are pretty scarce there in terms of the specs and what they're going to be offering, but I think this is a really cool looking design, and they've really hit it out of the park there in terms of giving this a lot of road presence. So that's that circular headlight Defender style design, and this is what the other one looks like from the rear. Again, similar design setup, and from a distance it kind of looks like the Land Cruiser 300 series as well, but it has its own sort of unique characteristics there too. So really cool looking setup, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing this in person to see if it has that same effect. Let's jump inside the cabin now. So again, big step forward here in terms of design. If you cast your mind back to the current generation Land Cruiser Prado, it is feeling old, and even down to the wood grain. It's like wood grain that you would expect to see in a 90s Commodore or something. It really just feels ancient. This looks significantly better. So two big displays there. I think these are 12.3 inch displays. One there for the infotainment cluster, one ahead of the driver as well that I'll give you a bit more detail on in just a second. But outside of that, it just looks a big step forward in terms of quality quality of materials. So it looks like soft touch materials there and along the door as well. There's even a padded section here and here to rest your feet on while you're driving or while you're a passenger in the vehicle. So that all looks really nice. JBL sound system by the look of it as well. I can see those tweeters off to the side there that we see in Hilux and other Toyota models as well. So I like that. If we come in a little bit closer though, let me show you what else I've seen here on the interior. So second row, you can see here they've gone down the path of a third zone of climate control, heating and cooling there for the second row as well, which is great. And if we zoom in a little bit closer there, I can see USB-C, so a big change there from the current USB-A/USB-C setup. You can also see a HDMI port there as well, which they seem to persist with. I don't know anyone that has devices that have HDMI, but it's there anyway. Idle up switch there for the diesel version of this, and then a button there for the 360 camera. More interestingly though is some of this stuff. So multi-terrain select and crawl control, which prior to this was only available in top spec of Land Cruiser Prado. Seems to be that they're going to be rolling that out to more vehicles across the range. It is all just electronics, so it's good to see that they are actually thinking about that. You have heated and cooled seats up the front here, and then have a look down here. So I'll go into a bit more detail on this when we talk about engines, but center diff lock, rear diff lock, sway bar disconnect. So this is something we haven't seen previously in Land Cruiser Prado. And then they also have full-time four-wheel drive, which is similar to the current generation of Prado as well, and differentiates this from Fortuner too, which is good to see. High quality switchgear there as well. So unlike what some brands are doing, which is burying all of these controls in menus, they've actually stuck that all out here so that you do have physical buttons for everything. Here you can also see a heated steering wheel as well. So again, going for that premium feel, dual zone climate control there as well, which is good to see. This is what the steering wheel looks like a little closer. So you can see there you've got a lane tracing assist because this has moved to an EPAS system. So electrically assisted steering rack, and the lane trace assist basically keeps it within its lane. Big digital display there ahead of the driver. Big step forward in terms of what's currently on offer in Land Cruiser Prado, which is good to see. Voice recognition switch down there, volume controls, and then cruise controls over here. All of that switchgear has changed, which is great. It all looks nice and modern, and again, a bit more premium, which seems to be the theme here with this vehicle. This is your seating configuration. So again, they've stuck with 7 seats. Which is good, and stadium seating setup, which means that's your level there. You get into the second row, level jumps up a bit, and then third row, it sits a little bit higher. So it just means that if you are sitting there, you have better vision out of the cabin. You can see here as well that this is a roll and tumble style setup. It isn't a movable second row. That was one of the biggest downsides to 300 series, because you don't really have a great deal of leg room in the third row, and you can't exactly move your second row forward to give third row occupants more room. So a little bit disappointing they haven't gone down the path of putting the second row on tracks to give you that space, but I guess that's sort of, it is what it is. I am curious to know what this switch down here is though. I noticed it earlier. It seems to say AC 100 watts. So in this car somewhere there must be an outlet that allows you to plug a device in, but it is interesting they actually have an on and off switch here. So I guess it means if you do have kids in the second row, they're not going to go sticking anything in there, and if they do, it won't actually be powered, which is good news. Now let's talk about engines. It is a little bit disappointing if I'm honest. So if we talk about the platform, increased rigidity, 50% increase in the frame rigidity and a 30% increase in overall rigidity. It means off-road it's going to feel a whole lot more, I guess, better put together, less flexing, that kind of thing. The suspension has changed as well. So they're talking about better wheel articulation here and improved off-road performance through the use of the EPAS, so the electrically assisted steering rack. Stabilizer disconnect mechanism, SDM is what they're calling it. So it's the first time it's been used in a Toyota vehicle, but we have seen this before in vehicles like the Gladiator and the Wrangler. It allows the vehicle to disconnect the sway bar to give you better off-road performance. I think this is replacing KDSS because that's what that system effectively does, and it looks like they've gone down the path of using this instead. And then you also have the multi-terrain select mode systems there as well. Now in terms of the engine, so globally this is going to be available with a turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol hybrid, and all the way through to an engine here that you wouldn't wish upon anyone. It's a 2.7 litre petrol engine, naturally aspirated, 120 kilowatts of power, 246 newton meters of torque. That's for Eastern Europe, so they can keep that one. But for Australia, what we're going to be getting is the engine out of the updated Hilux, which is a 2.8 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel with a 48 volt, very, very mild hybrid system, 150 kilowatts of power, 500 newton meters of torque. There is no mention here at all of a V6 or a petrol option, which is incredibly disappointing because if they really do want to compete with things like Everest that have a V6 diesel available, I just don't know why they haven't gone down the path of fitting that. It'll obviously compete with things like the Land Cruiser, which is available with the V6 diesel, but I guess that is just one thing they've got to think about. This engine does sound appealing though, the one that's limited to North America and China. So it's the engine out of the Lexus hybrid that we tested recently, which is a turbocharged 2.4 litre, 4-cylinder, 243 kilowatts of power, 630 newton meters of torque. Sounds really exciting to me, but unfortunately it's not going to make it to Australia. This goes on sale in Japan first, early next year, and it will be joined by an updated 70 series that is coming to Australia as well. And like I said, we actually shot a video on that. There is a link to that in the description below. So let me know what you reckon about the new Land Cruiser Prado. This is all the information we have at this very early stage, but the new 250 series looks bloody awesome on paper. I am keen to see what it feels like to drive. The engine sounds a little bit underwhelming. I was hoping for a V6 diesel, but we'll see how that goes. Let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. Are you excited for this? Are you going to place an order? How expensive do you reckon it's going to be? Because the current one caps out at about $90,000, $95,000. I reckon it's going to be well over 100 grand. So let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.